The federal government, for every $1 we spend on our public land, we get back 73 cents. So we put out $1 and we get back 73 cents. You don't have to be Euclid to see that we're going backwards here. I have seen an estimate from the private sector, there's several of these, that our public land, our $620 million, if we managed that land properly, could generate $90 million in revenue. $90 million could be generated by our public land. How? Through mineral harvesting, natural gas production, oil drilling, grazing for agriculture, hunting licenses, fishing licenses, camping permits. You know what our federal lands actually generate in money? We know the potential, $90 billion a year. That'd help us pay down this debt. In 2023, our federal lands actually lost money.
Hey there, Patriots. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because today we're diving into a topic that hits close to home. We're talking about federal land management, the Biden administration's policies, and why it's time for a massive overhaul in how we handle the vast resources owned by our government. Now, let me tell you something. If you're a true American patriot, you should be just as concerned as I am about the way our federal government is managing our land. Senator John Kennedy recently gave a powerful speech about how the Biden administration has absolutely buried federal lands in red tape, and let me tell you, this video is a must-watch. It exposes just how much we're losing out on because of bureaucratic nonsense and leftist policies that are slowly suffocating our nation's potential. Senator Kennedy points out that the U.S. government owns about 25% of all the land in America, 620 million acres. That's right, folks, 620 million acres. Now, if we were talking about private land, we'd be figuring out how to make the most of that land to generate income, grow businesses, and create jobs. But when it's the government, things get a little more complicated, don't they? We have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of these 620 million acres? These lands aren't just for show. They're not some faraway wilderness meant to be locked up and forgotten. No, these are our lands, the American people's lands. And it's high time we demand that they start working for us, not against us.
We've been talking a lot about spending in the federal budget and tax dollars, but there's another side to the ledger that sooner or later, in my judgment, we need to talk about. Here's what I'm getting at. 25% of the land in the United States of America is owned by the federal government. 25%. In some states, it's a lot more than 25%. That's just an average. It's 620 million acres. Now, if you inherited 620 million acres, what would you do? Well, the first thing you would do is you would be careful to conserve it out of respect for the land. You would want to make sure that land wasn't contaminated, that it was properly fenced. You'd want to preserve it. Second thing you would do is say, well, how can I monetize this property? I got 620 million acres here. I'm land poor. What can I do to have the land generate some income? Under our federal government, the Bureau of Land Management is responsible for managing the 620 million acres. And the charge to our Bureau is to do a couple of things. Number one, conserve the land. Number two, make sure, because it belongs to the American people, make sure that people have an opportunity to recreate on the land. And number three, see if you can manage the land in a way to generate cash. Why is that important? Why is that especially important right now? Our debt's $36.5 trillion. What does that mean? I mean, we throw around this figure of $1 trillion. We can hardly get our mind around. At least I can hardly get mine around. Our debt is so high And we're paying so much interest that the debt grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. So this 36.5 trillion figure, 100 days from now, a little over 3 months, it's going to be 37.5 trillion. That's how fast the debt's growing. This number is so high, and we're paying so much in interest that debt accrues at $10 billion a day, not million, $10 billion a day. $417 million, it goes up an hour. 6.9, let's call it 7 million a minute. What have I been talking, 3 minutes? The debt just got increased $21 million. And we've got to pay that money back. This is not funny money. We're talking about how to start paying it back by reducing our spending, but there's another way. It's to generate income through our 620 million acres of land. Take our national parks, for example. First thing we want to do with our natural parks is preserve them. I mean, they're beautiful. That's why they're national parks. We want to preserve them and respect them and protect them environmentally and otherwise. We also want to allow people to enjoy them. And we do that by telling folks, come on in. You have to pay an entrance fee, but it's reasonable if you want to come in and camp or just walk around and enjoy the scenery, go on a hike. And that generates some money. You don't want the entrance fee to be too high, but you want it to be reasonable. And in some of our national parks actually allow mining, oil and gas production, timber production, so that increases income as well. I have seen an estimate from the private sector, there's several of these, that our public land, our $620 million, if we managed that land properly, could generate $90 million in revenue. $90 million could be generated by our public land. How? Through mineral harvesting, natural gas production, oil drilling, grazing for agriculture, hunting licenses, fishing licenses, camping permits. You know what our federal lands actually generate in money? We know the potential, $90 billion a year. That'd help us pay down this debt. In 2023, our federal lands actually lost money. They lost $13 billion. We went from a potential of $90 billion, according to land use experts, that's what they ought to be generating, to a loss of $13 billion. It's embarrassing. Now, I don't want to blame all of it on the past administration. It wasn't all President Biden's fault, but some of it was. Under President Biden, not him, but his people, he appointed them, they banned offshore drilling off of most of America's coastlines. They prohibited mining on over 1 million acres of lands. They canceled leases for oil and natural gas production. They paused all new permits for LNG, which Europe is hungry for. They restricted hunting, they restricted fishing, they restricted hiking. And they buried our federal lands in red tape. That's why we lost $13 billion instead of gaining $90 billion a year. It doesn't have to be this way. All we have to do is look at the states. The states have state land. They don't have 620 million acres like the federal government does, but they got a lot of land. The states have worked very hard to increase the revenue on their state lands while preserving them. Arizona, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, all we have to do is copy them. their activities, their preservation of their property, but their monetizing of their state lands has produced over the past few years an average return of $14.51 for every $1 those states have invested. So the states spend $1 on their state lands, they get back 15 bucks. Pretty good return. And they haven't sacrificed air quality. They've protected their lakes and rivers, and they've preserved their state land. The federal government, for every $1 we spend on our public land, we get back 73 cents. So we put out $1 and we get back 73 cents. You don't have to be Euclid to see that we're going backwards here. We need to do better. And I know that the focus right now, Madam President, is on spending, and it should be. And it's on designing a tax code that looks like somebody designed it on purpose, and it should be. All those things are important. But at some point, we need to recognize the enormous amount of assets that the American people own through their federal government, and the fact that we are actually losing money by the way we are managing them instead of generating money. And once again, this is not, you don't have to be an astrophysicist to figure this out. All we got to do is call Arizona, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, and probably West Virginia, and just say, would y'all come up to Washington? We'll buy you a soda and give you a nice hat if you'll come on up here and tell us how you're doing it, and just copy what they're doing.
Here's the real kicker. According to experts in land use, if we managed our federal lands properly, we could be generating up to $90 billion a year. That's right, $90 billion. Imagine how much of that could go toward paying down our $36.5 trillion debt. That's money we could be using to rebuild our economy, lower taxes, and create jobs for working-class Americans. But what are we actually getting? In 2023, we lost $13 billion managing these lands. $13 billion. And how did that happen? Well, according to Senator Kennedy, it's because of the disastrous policies pushed by the Biden administration. Their environmental overreach, their love affair with red tape, and their outright refusal to allow productive use of our lands is costing us dearly. Let me tell you something. This is exactly what happens when we let left-wing radicals run the show. The Biden administration and their cronies in Washington have single-handedly crippled industries like mining, oil, gas, and agriculture by restricting access to federal lands. Offshore drilling banned? Check. Oil and gas leases canceled? Check. Mining on federal lands restricted? Check. They've put a chokehold on our natural resources, and the American people are the ones paying the price. You know what they want? They want to shut down American industry and force us to rely on foreign countries for our energy needs. Think about it. They're restricting domestic oil production while begging OPEC to produce more. How does that make sense? It's simple, folks. They don't care about American workers. They care about pushing their radical environmental agenda, and they're using our land as their battleground. Now, here's where we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Senator Kennedy points to states like Arizona, Idaho, Montana, and New Mexico, states that manage their land much more effectively than the federal government does. These states have found ways to preserve their natural beauty while also generating serious revenue, about $14.51 for every $1 they invest in managing state lands. That's a fantastic return on investment. But what about the feds? For every dollar spent, we get back 73 cents. 73 cents. And you know why? It's because the feds are all about control, not about growth, innovation, or opportunity. They'd rather hold on to our land like some sort of bureaucratic fortress than let it work for the American people. It's infuriating. If we could just copy what these states are doing, we could turn the tide. We could create jobs, generate revenue, and use that money to pay down the national debt or reinvest it into our communities. But the problem is, the left doesn't want to do that. They don't want to let businesses thrive or allow Americans to benefit from the land we own. Now, here's where we get to the heart of the matter. Senator Kennedy says we need to learn from the states, and I couldn't agree more. States like Arizona and Idaho are doing it right. They're managing their land with a balance of preservation and profit. They're finding ways to generate income without compromising the environment. It's all about striking that balance. But what does the federal government do? They've buried our lands in so much red tape that it's practically impossible to do anything productive. It's not just frustrating, it's downright un-American. We're sitting on a gold mine of natural resources, and yet we're letting it all slip through our fingers because of a bunch of unelected bureaucrats who have no interest in American prosperity. This is why we need to take action, patriots. We need to demand that our federal government stops holding us back and starts using our resources to fuel our economy. We need to elect leaders who will prioritize American interests over radical leftist ideologies. Our land should work for us, not against us. So let's make our voices heard. Call your representatives, talk to your senators, and make sure they know. It's time to open up our federal lands, reduce the red tape, and start generating the revenue we need to secure our future. We're Americans and we know how to get things done. We just need the government to get out of our way. Let's stop letting the Biden administration run roughshod over our resources and start taking control of our own destiny. Thanks for tuning in, patriots. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and let's keep spreading the word. We've got work to do, but together we can make America stronger than ever. Stay strong, stay patriotic, and I'll see you next time.